Hello, and welcome back to another God2 meeting. Today we're doing the internet's quickest set review of Magic the Gathering's Aetherdrift. Without further ado, let's begin. We begin our review with 60 card constructed formats, Standard, Pioneer, and Modern. Aetherdrift has a couple cards which can be good in control archetypes. Spell Pierce will be an instant hit for both control and tempo decks, making this town decks even stronger than they already are. Stock Up may see play in slower control decks, although I'm unsure if it beats out instant speed draw options like Deduce and Think Twice. And Ancient Vendetta is a card which likely won't be very good until the Stone Brain is rotated out, but I will absolutely be playing it alongside the Stone Brain and Deadly Cover-Up and VN to cause maximum annoyance. One last side note for control, there is a board wipe in this set, which is fine, but won't be any good at least until Sunfall rotates out. The Aether Spark is certainly not the strongest card, but I could see it having value in decks like Golgari Midrange, attaching to Glissas and Mosswood Dread Knights. And Guardian Sunmare seems interesting to me as it can find removal such as Skyclave Apparition with its attack trigger. Webstrike Elite is an option that may see play in standard green Stompy decks, and Big Titty Frog Goddess could find homes in both Standard and Pioneer, specifically with its powerful synergy with Innkeeper's talent, allowing you to both draw and attack with her every turn. Gastel Thrill Roller and Hazaret could both be misers or doubles in mono red, although I'm skeptical either of them are actually any good. And while Bloodghast may be more up in the air for Standard, it will most certainly enjoy its time in Pioneer, Dredge, and Black aggro decks. Colstoke Gearhulk makes for a fantastic against the odds clone combo deck, while Valor's Flagship will see some play with Greasefang, both in Pioneer. The Flagship might also be a control finisher in Standard, but I doubt that Worst Decree of Justice can cut it in 2025 Magic. And Tune-Up is an interesting effect, as it both animates and reanimates a vehicle, opening the door for new decks or just acting as bad Greasefang's 5/8. These next three cards are on the list simply because if Start Your Engines decks are any good, they'll need at least two of these three. Perhaps a Rakdos variant with Lizard and Crime synergies is possible. I think Exhaust has better legs than Speed with the fantastic synergy of Draconautics Engineer and Afterburner Expert. If you can fill your graveyard with experts, then activate the Engineer. The experts will enter before the haste granting ability resolves, allowing them to attack immediately. And since you're filling the graveyard anyways, maybe this deck joins forces with Gruul Delirium aggro. Both Guidelight Matrix and Colodin seem to push for a high crew cost vehicle and mount deck, although they could also see home with a simple aggressive vehicle and mount deck, alongside Cloudspire Coordinator. Either way, I wouldn't keep my hopes up for mounts and vehicles winning a GP, but they could certainly take down an FNM. I'll also note that Colodin is my pick for the most powerful and interesting vehicle commander of the set. Both Basri and the Howl Squad Heavy will only be good where their respective tribes are good, but I think both could rise to the power level of Standard or even Pioneer. Grim Bauble and Momentum Breaker are instant this town ain't big enough staples, with Grim Bauble possibly taking the place of Cut Down. I think these cards and the deck as a whole has potential in Pioneer after witnessing its Standard prowess. Another quarter of the Verge cycle is boring but does require mention, providing the enemy colors better mana bases. And the Roads cycle doesn't seem great, but perhaps the white and red Roads, the best name Roads, could see play with the aforementioned vehicle aggro deck. Finally arriving at cards for older formats, Marauding Mako is an instant shoe-in alongside Flame-Blade Adept and Hollow One decks, which recently saw resurgence with the unbanning of Faithless Looting, although the deck has fallen off quite a bit. Conversely, Voyage Home's Home would be the incredibly powerful Affinity archetype, but the card's issue is whether or not its casting cost makes it too inefficient for Affinity. And rounding off this section of the set review are three cards which will break formats guaranteed. Radiant Lotus is a slightly worse Clark Clan Ironwork, suffering only from a higher casting cost and stifle ability. I think it will break Modern to the same degree as unbanning KCI would. Repurposing Bay is just begging for someone to find a combo in formats all the way back to Legacy, and Ketramos will be the next up the beanstalk, seeing some play in at a minimum Standard, Pioneer, and Modern. Switching gears, I think Aetherdrift has only three Pauper viable cards. At first glance, Megamkin Artillerist is a strictly worse Dranith Stinger, but its real power lies in the ability to win in the cleanup step by discarding to hand size, greatly lowering Cycle Storm's mana requirements. Chitin Gravestalker also seems like a bad Cycle Storm card at first glance, but it could be a sideboard option to help the deck with its beatdown backup plan, and it may also see play in other self-mill strategies. And rounding out the Pauper review is Night Market, the best version of its effect we've seen so far at Common. Doesn't mean the effect is great, but I've heard enough chatter online to include it here. From Magic's cheapest format to one of its most expensive, let's talk cEDH. Hashatan is the only commander from Aetherdrift that I expect to truly be a contender in cEDH. Other options are fringe playable, such as Ketramos, but Hashatan is the only one I would expect to crash with the big kids. Hashatan will thrive in mid-range hell. It's in very good colors, is cheap enough for commander-centric effects like Fierce Guardianship, and gives pseudo-flash and often a discount to your creatures, so long as you have a discard outlet. Most notable is flashing in an instant speed Thought's Oracle win, but be scared of Void Winnowers, Consecrated Sphinxes, and Grand Abolishers alike. Similar to Hashaton, Lifecraft Engine is the only 99 card I expect to see cEDH play from Aetherdrift, and it'll only see play in one deck, Magda. But in Magda, it will flourish as it fulfills the role of both Dwarf Tapper and Artifact Dwarf, perhaps the two most important slots in the deck. In the realm of Casual Commander, I've actually already discussed almost all the cards I think are cool, so only 3 mentions here. Redshift opens the door for Gruul Ability Matters Voltron, which is certainly unique for the color combo, if a little strange. Dredger's Insight tax-free life gain onto an already beloved effect, at least beloved by me, and while Monument to Endurance isn't the only interesting discard payoff of the set, it is by far the most interesting. And to wrap up the review, here's a few special mentions I'd like to make. Loot will probably break something somewhere, but I have no idea where or how. Rise from the Wreck is my pick for the least fun to play against limited card from the set, and Chrome Mox will get pre-banned in Historic and do who knows what in Timeless as a new to Arena card. Pyrewood Gearhulk holds my spot for my favorite artwork of the set, and Maximum Overdrive, my favorite name. And last but not least, here's just a few silly artworks that I really enjoyed. If you liked the video, tell a friend to take a look at it and consider subscribing for more content like this.